Uh, Hello, everyone, on this Monday. Happy Monday, hopefully. And I am joined by Kevin J. De Bruin.
Yes.
Is that how you want to
said
go
it right.
by?
Kevin J. De Bruin. Yeah. I added the J because there's a really famous soccer player over in Europe known as Kevin De Bruin. He's been doing great this week, so I've been getting more followers. But I added the J to differentiate myself.
Okay, gotcha. I was wondering. And so some people are wondering, they might not be familiar with you. I think your story, although I don't know the whole story, but is very interesting. You were a NASA rocket scientist, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And not anymore.
No, I left NASA in 2018.
2018. Okay.
Yes, 2018. Wow, 6 years ago. Holy crap.
Wow, 6 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it was at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the one that's in Pasadena, California, so just outside of Los Angeles. Because a lot of people, when they hear NASA, right, they just think about, Houston, Texas, Houston, we have a problem, or Kennedy Space Center, outside of Orlando and Titusville, because that's where they launched the rockets from. But there's more than 20 different NASA centers and facilities all around the country. There's 2 of them in California alone. They're really spread out, mostly around the coast, up the East Coast. There's even 3 facilities, I believe, in Ohio. So it's all over the place. I was out in Los Angeles.
Yep. Wow. And now you're in Florida.
Now I'm in Florida. Now I'm in St. Petersburg. So I am about 3 hours west of Cape Canaveral. And do I drive over there for lunches? No, I do not.
Too far away. Okay, well, let me play just a little bit of your reel, because I just watched it and I thought it was really cool. And this will give people a little better idea of what you do.
What's up, guys? Kevin J. De Bruin here, former NASA rocket scientist.
This is Kevin De Bruin. He's an aerospace engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in nearby Pasadena.
Design spaceships that are looking for aliens, specifically Europa.
Here to discuss is Kevin De Bruin, former NASA systems engineer and Curiosity Stream in-house science expert. Welcome to the show.
What's up, everybody? My name's Kevin. I'm a former NASA rocket scientist. So I spent a few years designing those spaceships that travel to other planets. And then I fell in love with educating people about space and science. So now that's what I do. I am Curiosity Stream's brand ambassador for all things space and science. There are over 5,000 crayons. Oh my God! There's a place off Ocean Avenue where I used to sit. I confess I did it wrong. Oh no! Oh, we're doing the Macarena? It only takes 3 minutes to get to Mars. Hey, curious kids. Kevin here. Today on A Place Called Space, we are going to talk about how long it takes to get to Mars.
I can see you laughing watching it.
I know my phrases. Hey, curious kids, Kevin here. Today on A Place Called Space, we are talking about insert topic. And
right. Well, I feel like, you've done a lot of things already that I would love to eventually do. So first of all, congratulations. I mean, maybe not American Ninja Warrior, although that would be
don't sell yourself short, Ellie. We can get you there.
Yeah. That's awesome. But just being on sort of network appearances, that's something that I kind of want to do eventually with SpaceX commentary. So that's really awesome. That gives you guys a better idea of who Kevin is. But tell me what it was like working for NASA and why you chose to leave.
Yes. So working for NASA, every job has its, its pros, its cons, its ups and downs. Well, one of the things I really loved was we're always doing things that have never been done before. There is no way you can flip to the back of the book, and find an answer or see what other people have already done previously. It's okay, yeah. We're sending another rover to Mars that's about the same size as Curiosity. This one's Perseverance, but it still is something that's really never been done before. It was heavier weight, different instruments, different things. So you're always doing something new. What I really loved about that is the people that I was with, or that were also at NASA. I was always definitely not the smartest person in the room. There are people who I was working with who designed or were part of every single Mars lander mission. And it's they've been doing this for decades. So it can be very fast paced, or feel kind of frantic when you're on deadlines or you're trying to get this design done. But then it can also really slow down to okay, we have to do this same thing over and over again. We're running these tests continually. So sometimes you're doing that, like 24/7, 3 different shifts of 8 hours at a time. So sometimes you're working overnight leading up to like the spacecraft launch, that's where it gets like super crazy. So it's a kind of a combination of like everything that you would think of, from, days where you're just sitting in the cubicle by yourself, working on your own analysis or design. Maybe you're in the lab, then, testing some hardware, running through some software simulations. Sometimes we're in, the standard meetings where you're at the long table, you got the projector showing the slides up front, getting everybody on the same page. And then we have like intense design sessions as well, where there's teams at NASA JPL called A-Team, Team X, and Team XC, where we get a bunch of different experts in the room in the respective disciplines, and we're designing a spacecraft in real time. We got the scientist there who has the questions that they want to answer. We got the engineers in each discipline trying to figure out, okay, if we're trying to answer this question, what does the spacecraft need to do? What are the requirements? All right, these are some components we can put together. And that I really loved. There's a lot of fast-paced, figure out what mission designs were happening. And I did that over 30 different times, looking from like Earth orbiters to moon sample return. Mars sample return came through part of the designs for that one. We were looking at boats and submarines on the moon Titan of Saturn. That's the only other place with liquid on its surface in our solar system that we're aware of at the moment. To telescopes, like the ones that are coming after James Webb, after Starshade. I don't know if you know about that one, but then there's like HABEX, which is a habitable exoplanet telescope that's in the works for design that wouldn't launch maybe until like 2055, 2060. So looking very far to the future as well. Yeah, I mean, it was exciting, but then it started to get, I say boring at times. Like, doing a space mission takes a lot of, you got to make it perfect, right? Like the Mars rovers, they take, somewhere between like, let's say 7 to 15 years to design. I was working on Europa Clipper. I started working on that in 2000 and when was that? 2014 or 2015. And now it's just launching this October. So it takes a really long time to do these things. So sometimes it's like a hurry up and wait game where you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then you got to fight against, the political schemes, because it's like, all right, are we going to fund Europa Lander or Mars sample return? Europa Lander was the other project I was on. So that one got shelved and they put the money into Mars sample return. So leaving it was tough because I wanted to work for NASA since I was 10 years old. So it took me about 15 years to make that happen. And when I got there, it was great. I was doing all these things. It was new. And then the halo effect kind of wore off. And I was looking around and there wasn't anyone's job at NASA that I wanted. Like, you're in those coaching sessions with your managers, like, all right, where do you want to go? Like, whose job do you want in the future? And I'm like, no one. Like something's not right for me right now. I don't know what that is. So I started talking to people about other companies. I spoke to people who came from industry, people who were near retirement. I'm like, what's the story out there? And people were like, one guy specifically, Tim, was like, if you are not happy here at JPL, you're not going to be happy anywhere. JPL is like the cream of the crop of like, it's like a college environment. It's chill. It's relaxed. No one wears a suit and tie, right? It's just of the NASA facilities and mainly industry of you're looking at Boeing and Lockheed Martin, the Aerospace Corporation, Bigelow Aerospace specifically is where this guy came from. He's like, if you're not happy here, you're not going to be happy there. So you got to figure something out. And I really fell in love with science education at this time. I was doing outreach so often. I was taking my lunches, I was taking nights and weekends, I even took vacation time to go out and speak about space because I couldn't do that all while I was on the clock. And it got to a point where I'm like, I would rather do this than sit in the cubicle. Like I love engaging with people, like being on the front lines of inspiration and education. Like, yeah, I was working on a mission that was going to launch in, a handful of years, inspire millions of people. But I was so far disconnected from those people. I was one of, thousands that worked on this mission. And I'm like, now what I do, my interactions face to face or, creating content, whatever it may be, whoever I'm consulting with, it's like, if I don't do it, it doesn't get done. I can't just be like replaced. So I'm like, I got these unique set of skills that I want to take control of my life and educate and impact in a way that I see fit. And it makes me feel so much more alive. If you can tell, like just from this conversation, than, you know, sitting in a cubicle or like just being at a facility doing someone else's work, which is amazing work that needs to get done for 40 to 60 hours a week. I fell in love with doing science education so much more than doing my rocket science, my aerospace engineering.
Wow.
Yeah,
Now,
that's a long-winded answer. I mean, if you would have told me I was going to quit NASA at any point prior to 2015, I was like, huh? You got to be crazy.
right. No, I actually see a lot of parallels with my journey of, like, you know, working my way up the TV news ladder, thinking that that's, you know, the grass would be greener on that side. And then reality check, it wasn't what I wanted. And similar to, you know, your story, where if you would have told me I'm working full-time on YouTube, I'd say you're crazy. I love what you're doing, though, with the science education. And in some ways that might even be more impactful or important because, you know, you're inspiring the young minds that need to be the future generation of engineers and scientists, you know, working on the future of space.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And it's what like it keeps me going, because there's so many different ways to spread information or to learn information, to engage. And I wasn't able to do that while I was at NASA. I tried to do it while I was there. I hit so many roadblocks. I was in like the ethics office. So much red tape I had to go through. They needed to approve everything. And I'm like, what you're approving isn't the way that I believe we should be educating the public, or at least the new information. There was a battle against social media in the first place. Now it's so interesting. Now I look at people who are working at NASA, JPL or other facilities, and they are routinely doing the things that I was told I could not do. Like photos on campus, videos on campus, like any sort of content, like on NASA property. And I was like, I guess they just got like fed up with it, or they're just like overwhelmed. Like, okay, yeah, you can go and do this and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just a lot of the red tape. And I really felt that the engagement that I'm able to do personally, and the opportunities I've had since leaving NASA, since, 6 years ago, is profound. Like last year, do you know Lee Giat? Do you know him?
I don't think so.
Emily Calandrelli's train as a cosmonaut contest like 5 years ago.
Okay.
Well, he has a nonprofit called Passage, and it was him flying his plane. He removed the seats, put in school supplies, telescopes, science activities, and flew that down from Florida to the Bahamas, Jamaica, a few spots in Colombia, Argentina, and Chile. And I joined him on this journey last year. It was 6 weeks, and we went down, and I taught science and space, and met with the ministers of education in every country with him to figure out what is the future of education, specifically with regards to science, like in these areas. I'm going to third world countries that I think we only met maybe like 5 people of the tens of thousands that have ever looked through a telescope before. And we set up telescopes and do this. So like having those opportunities, like be able to create my own schedule, to be able to just take 6 weeks and dedicate my life to that and not have to report to like an organization or anything like that. Like those are the opportunities. Like that is why I left NASA, to be able to educate in the way that I see fit. Cause I think that makes a bigger impact.
Right.
Because I mean, you're doing a great thing where like you're on YouTube, you're using these new forms of media to like spread this information to make it happen. Because nowadays kids want to be YouTubers more than they want to be astronauts. Here, you're doing both. You're like, I'm going to be a YouTuber astronaut. Like you and Tim, you're like, we're doing both of those.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's so interesting. I just see so many parallels where, I'm kind of in the same boat of being able to control what I do with my time, and it is extremely rewarding. In fact, one of the things that I like the least is kind of sitting in my office and like making content at home. I feel energized as well, kind of, interacting with people and being in the field. And so very, very similar, you know, feelings that you have. I'm
Yeah.
curious, part of the reason because I've been following you for a while now, and I've had my own, yeah, I've had my own difficulties a little bit with NASA. So we're not here to talk shade, but I think we are here to, maybe talk about the reality of some antiquated practices. I don't
Do
know if you
that.
saw Smarter Every Day's video. Destin, he made a video about. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen no, I know Destin, I know Smarter Every Day, but I haven't seen a video
What are we
referring
talking about?
to NASA
Let
or
me
red tape.
let me see if I can pull it up really quickly because it's very. He basically like called NASA out. I don't know if any of you guys. Let me know in the comments, like if you
Yeah.
guys have seen this. It has 3 million views. And it's titled, let's see here if I can share it. Can you guys see this?
I cannot. Yeah, here we go.
Okay. So I was scared to say this to NASA, but I said it anyway. So it's a pretty long video. But he really talks about kind of the lack of planning with Artemis, kind of some of the downfalls of the current.
Oh, yeah. I got some inside information on that one.
Okay. So, and I'm putting the link in the comments. But essentially, I've had like some issues. I did a private tour of the Johnson Space Center. I filmed it. Everyone on the tour said it was okay to do. And then, they asked to review it, and they immediately sent me a cease and desist letter and said, absolutely no, I couldn't post it, which was odd to me because they never even told me what part was, a red flag for them. So I guess I don't know how to start this, but I'm sure that you had some issues, the work culture, SpaceX versus NASA is like way different, and they both have their pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
But what do you think NASA could improve for, a better work culture?
Oh. I'm going to preface this with I am talking about JPL specifically, right? I did work with Langley Research Center, with Kennedy, with Johnson, with Marshall, but I will keep it specific to JPL since that's where I actually spent the majority of my time. It has a pretty decent, like, relaxed work culture, I would say, of all those Destin, or as I see that come up, I'm like, Destin.
Yeah.
NASA JPL is like the most relaxed. We do the things that are, the robotic exploration out past the moon and beyond. So, I mean, the thing that we really felt at NASA JPL was a lack of appreciation for us as like individuals. So like being rewarded for time there, like after a year you get a pen, after 5 years you get a plaque, or like after 20 years, I don't know, maybe you got a watch or something like that. It was like, like the old dated kind of thing. So I was part of focus groups that was meeting with like the executive board and HR of like, how can we make it so that JPL is better at retaining talent? So it's been known for a long time that NASA and JPL specifically isn't good at retaining young talent. So they'll hire people right out of college. They'll stay from 1 to 5 years and then bounce, then go somewhere else. And it's like, why? What happened to this, company loyalty where people stayed for, 40, 50 years? Once people are like a mid-career hire, like they come back in, like their mid-30s or 40s, like then they stay there till retirement. But like, what's going on with the youngness? So they can do better. And they have made significant strides in the last 8 years that I've seen and that I've talked to. But just like what they need to do and what they are able to do is different, because one, it's a government company. or it's a government organization, right? So you have the political red tape there and different bins of money. Like if you want to build a new building, that's one pot of money. But if you want to modify a building to add on more square footage, to have more offices, that's a different pot of money. Or if you just want to put in trailers, that's a different pot of money for people to just sit in trailers. So it's like, if we're trying to, it would be nice if it was like free for all in terms of kind of like money, of you're able to do what you want. I'm not saying SpaceX can do that, but I feel like any private organization has a lot more flexibility in not having to report to the government. Yes, you have to report to shareholders as long as you're making money. Who cares how you spend it? So specifically, I guess I kind of just being like general, in the beginning, when Periscope first came out. So this is the era we're talking about. When Periscope first came out, people in the education office and the outreach office were very reluctant on social media. One person in particular did not want social media to be used to promote things at JPL. And I'm like, what?
Ah.
And JPL likes to choose who they want to be front facing, like who is in the media's eye, right? Like they choose. You couldn't have contacted JPL and be like, I want to interview Kevin about Europa. That would have been like, no, you're going to interview this person about Europa. Like you pick the topic, but we're going to tell you which people. So it didn't like individuals using social media to like use your government position to gain a following for, any sort of self-benefit. But that's kind of like on the personal side of things. Overall, as an organization, we've become very risk adverse. I mean, we see that because of, the Challenger and the Columbia disasters, and we're using taxpayer money. We have less of the budget now. Instead of 5% in the Apollo era, we're down to like 0.49%, so everything needs to be accounted for. So there's not as much like risk taken. And we see people like, SpaceX, and even like the academic industry, like universities using CubeSats, not like CubeSat industries, or where you're able to take the risk. And NASA even tried to get into CubeSats, but they tried to do it the old-fashioned way, of the way they did the large satellites. And they're like, okay, to launch this type of CubeSat, so like MIT launched their Tropics satellites. We tried to replicate that using NASA resources, and it was going to cost like 10 times as much. And like we just can't compete with like those prices. So needing to just be, I don't even want to say innovative, because NASA is innovative, but in different ways.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think it's just a matter of like, get with the times and, like see the value of social media. Social media is kind of everything.
Yeah. And there are definitely people within NASA that love social media, right? So there is, what's it called? The NASA socials, right? So I got invited to do it. I applied and got invited to NASA Johnson for a NASA social. And I'm talking to the leaders while I'm there, and they're like, you had to apply to the NASA social to like come over here and like view the facility and stuff. Like there's a problem. We can't even get our own people to come to another facility, like, and check it out and collaborate. And I was like, yeah, no, I took vacation to come to NASA to join a social. And that was back in 2016, maybe. That was. Yeah. So like NASA has come a long way. They have been stumbling. They stumbled early on, which is totally fine as long as they were trying. It's gotten better. Could be even better. But I think the biggest holdback, besides government red tape and politics, is generational. Like a generational divide, where there is a lot of older individuals that are set in their ways, that if it's not broken, don't fix it. Or a lot of us new people are like, if it could be better, it might as well be broken. So we come at it with a different perspective. And that only works so much, when you're trying to use heritage to do space things. They're just so far behind. I guess you could compare it to like but like fashion on the West Coast, right? Is like, let's say, private industry, right? And then by the time it filters back to the Midwest, Wisconsin, where I grew up, that's NASA. They're just behind the times. They're coming in late. They're doing. like amazing things, but it's like in terms of, we'll say millennial, Gen Z, I don't even know, I think alpha generation is even below that. Like what we want as change, they're not able to keep up with that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I do have some more questions. Some people are noticing a lag and there's like clipping on your audio. I don't know if we should like have you rejoin because I want people to be able to hear you. It's you can hear you, but there's a lag and then a little bit of clipping.
Let me
Try
try
again.
here. I am going to try and change the camera.
Okay.
How do I get in here? Stop my. How do I switch my camera in studio setting?
You go to
Here we
settings.
go. Okay, we're gonna go to the shitty camera,
That's all right.
and we'll see if that improves.
We'll see if it's any better. I maybe the sound would be different too. Someone says Wisconsin represent, so
Yeah. Integrated camera. Is it showing?
Not there
Hi.
you are.
Okay, so this is the crappy camera.
Okay. You
Is
guys
this
let me
better?
know. You guys let me know if this is better. I think it is. Although I do hear a little bit of myself echoing, so maybe I should mute myself. But we do have some questions for you. So, and I am curious, like, did you ever want to work for SpaceX?
No, never. It's not what I wanted to do. So what really interests me is robotic solar system exploration. I really don't give two craps about rocket launches, honestly. I want to do the stuff that's never been done before in terms of advancing science forward. I like the altruistic mindset of like, we're trying to answer the big questions, like, are we alone? Where did like life start on Earth? Or was it panspermia? Did it come from Mars? Why is our solar system the way it is? So I really wanted to just work at JPL specifically because of the robotic exploration, the Voyagers that were launched in 1977, Galileo in 1989, the spacecrafts that went out to our outer solar system. That was so much more interesting and exciting to me than SpaceX. And I also saw that colleagues or people I was working with that were working with SpaceX they worked a lot. And yes, at NASA you work a lot, but I looked at an internship application and it said the internship requirement is a minimum 50 hours a week. And I'm like, like I have so many outside activities. I like my own kind of life. So I didn't want to commit myself that much. And like the full-time position was like a minimum 60 hours a week. And I'm like, I have other things that I'm interested in. I don't want to be spending that much time at work. So that's what really pulled me away from it.
Well, yeah, I've heard the people that work for SpaceX are permanently tired.
And some people love it. Like it's great for some people. Just for me, that was not the work in general wasn't what I really wanted to do. And then you add on like the work environment on top of that. And I was like, nah, not for me.
Yeah. So what was your transition like leaving 6 years ago, and how did you evolve into what you are today?
Let's see. It's a long time.
Yeah.
So when I decided to leave, I was talking with like the lady who hired me at NASA, my fiance at the time, parents, best friends, other people at work. And then I made the decision to leave, but I didn't feel comfortably confident. So when I gave my notice, I cried in my cubicle every single day after that until the day I left. Because I'm like, I've wanted to work here since I was 10 years old. I'm quitting my dream job because I'm not happy and I want something else. Like, is this right? On the last day, I went and I turned in my badge, and then I played Rocket Man on speaker on my phone as I walked out the door. And I was like, okay, we are on to the next journey. And I did go to a company called the Aerospace Corporation after that, where I went there purely as a stepping stone because I still needed to pay my bills. But at that point, I could then use NASA to promote myself. So while I was at NASA, I could never say, Kevin Bruin, NASA engineer, and then accept any form of payment. But leaving NASA now, because a former NASA rocket scientist, and they have no say over how I brand myself. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this company as a transition to do that. And what really allowed me to leave and go on my own was I landed a contract with Curiosity Stream. They're like the Netflix for nerds, and I was their resident rocket scientist, the brand ambassador, and like having that as a consistent contract for income, I was like, okay, cool. I was able to leave at that point, but I didn't leave yet. So I was married at this time. I'm not married anymore, and I was talking to my ex-wife, who was my wife then, and I'm like, I feel like I'd be able to like leave, like work and like do my own thing, and we're a partnership. So I was like, what do you think about that? And she's like, not until you're making the same amount of money or more than you were making at your like full-time job. And I was like, okay, so it's like never a possibility until like I match it. So like I'm working, I have that contract. I then was highlighted at Yuri's Night in LA, Yuri's Night in Colorado Springs. I was flown up to Istanbul, Turkey to give a talk at their Entrepreneur and Innovation Week. And I was going to Korea to teach a space camp in a few months. So I had like all this momentum built up. Oh, and I also just gave my first TED Talk, Without Space We Die, at Georgia Tech. And my partner said, hey, there was like no perfect time to leave, but like with all this momentum, like this seems to be the right time to go. And I'm like, what? Like you said, like this, like my income isn't there yet. You said like this would never be a possibility. So yeah, if you want to quit, like you can quit. And at that moment when it became real, I got scared. I was like, oh crap, it's possible. Like, I need to think about this. Like, give me a second. So after I came to terms with it, I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. Like I'm making enough to cover, not matching my salary. I was making good north of six figures while I was doing engineering. I'm like, I'm not there yet, but I've been doubling my income every like month or 2 months for the last 6 months. Seems like I'm on the right track here.
Right.
So I then was quitting that job, and that was scarier than quitting NASA, because now I didn't have, like, I wasn't going to another place with a secure paycheck. Just leave me one. I went to this, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it on Thursday. I'm going to quit my job on Thursday. So my boss's office is right next to mine. They're not cubicles, like actual walled offices. And I'm like, okay, I got to go talk to him. And I'm like scared crapless. And I'm like, all right. So I put on my headphones, go to YouTube, motivational speeches. And I'm listening. I'm like, okay. So I take my headphones off, and I'm just about to get up. I'm like, no, I'm not ready. So I put them back in. And then I heard a line that was something to the order of, if you live in fear, you will never live the life you're meant to. And it just clicked at that moment. I threw the headphones down, walked into my boss's office, and I was like, hey, Rob, I got to talk to you. And I quit my job.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, great, cool. Now I can like go do my own thing. But what people don't tell you about quitting your job and going to do your own thing, like, yeah, there's like the insurance and business side of things, but the creating your own schedule, and like now you have full control. And like for the last, I don't know, 20 some years of my life, I've been in school or work. I need to be somewhere at a certain time to do this thing. Now it's all on me. Like,
right.
Do I still get up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym and then come back and work? I don't have to do that anymore. Should I? So getting a grasp on what it's like to actually run your own life in terms of structure and timetable took a while for me to figure out.
Amen.
In creating that structure. Yeah.
Yes. We have so many parallels. Everything you're saying is like what I've gone through. It's kind of crazy. I think one of the things that we also underestimate is that, yeah, maybe we don't have any security, but our time and our ability to say yes to any opportunity is completely freed up. We don't have to ask for PTO. You know what I mean? Like for me, it was like Starship is going to start
100%.
launching. My YouTube channel is, taking off with this type of content. I don't want to have to ask my news director, hey, I don't have any PTO. Can I please go cover this launch? So it's like, it's amazing. Like, I feel like you just have to take the leap of faith and like, it will work out as long as you like try.
Well, so there's a phrase that's like, follow your passion. Right. And
Mhm.
or it's follow your passion, the money will follow. I am
Yep.
against that phrase, actually, because it doesn't emphasize what you and I have experienced of the work that you have to put into it and the trials, the tribulations, the failures. Like following your passion is one thing. No, the money will not just come. I'm sorry. It will not. You have to fight for it. And sometimes there won't be any money for a long time and you got to go, who can I ask for money right now? Or what job do I need to go get? It's all over the place. So like, what's the new thing that I can do? So
Right.
in the beginning, when I first quit, I was basically just shelling myself out as talent, right? I was like the resident rocket scientist. I was teaching space camps. I did a commercial. So I was basically not like an actor, but almost like in that sense of like waiting for gigs to come to me, speaking gigs, things like this. And then when COVID happened, like all of like the in-person stuff went away and I need to like refigure out what's going on. And then I had 3 events the next summer that were getting opened back up and they got canceled on me. They're just like, oh, we're going to go with somebody else. And I lost like $30,000 in an instant. And I'm like,
What?
I don't have control over this. I was banking on that money. Like, no, a contract wasn't signed, but there was agreements. And then I'm like, I need to actually be an entrepreneur. Like I was self-employed at the time. Now I need to be an entrepreneur. I need to develop my own companies. I need to take control. So that's where Space Class came from. That's the new book, To Dare Mighty Things, with the personal development and the life coaching. Like now I actually run my own companies and can control sales. Like if I'm not making money, like that's kind of like, I guess, my fault. I'm like not doing things right. So that transition was really, quitting, figuring out a structure for myself, but in that same time, coming to the realization of I need to have control over my business. Like I have control over my time, but I don't have control over making money.
Wow.
I am pleading that others will hire me or find me, and like playing the entertainment industry like a lottery ticket. Like, oh, maybe I'll be able to host this thing and stuff. Like now I've partnered with a production company. I have the airtime. Like I'm developing my own show. Like that's the way to go about it rather than just keep on applying on Actors Access or backstage casting. So it's now being in control of the company.
And I feel like I'm not quite there yet. So it's inspiring to see that you've been able to, evolve and work your way through what you need to do in order to kind of be in control of your finances. I'm only about a year and a half into full time. So
yeah, well, I'll tell you, I'm not there yet either. I can talk about it. So I still do contract engineering in the downtime. So
Really?
so I've been working with the Aerospace Corporation on and off. So I quit them in 2019. And then in November of 2021, I hit them back up because this was like all my stuff from COVID was going away because they wanted me to stay on as like a retired person where I'd come and go as I please, but I had conflict of interest and I didn't want to do it. But so then, things were hard. So I reached back out and I was like, hey, Rob, is that position like kind of still available? And they're like, yeah, we'd love to have you back. Mm-hmm. So when things are slow or projects aren't, picking up, like I hit them back. I'm like, hey, I got availability for like the next couple months, or I can give you, 10 hours a week for the next 6 months for sure. I'm able to go on those projects, but I still control all of my time with that. I choose when I'm working, when I'm not working. So it's now just like a unique position that I've been able to establish myself since I did work there. I showed how amazing I was to then be fully remote and just work on whenever I want or whatever I want, whenever I want. Like they say like, hey, you want this project? I'm like, no, it's not interesting. I don't want it.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm not fully there yet. I would like to leave the engineering world completely, like I did for the first couple of years. COVID really threw a wrench in that plan with everything that went away. Like I left, and then COVID happened 5 months later. I was like, oh, okay, let's pivot.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm not there yet. So you and I, we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out the finances, working with like tax people to also understand, like I am a LLC, but I file taxes as an S corp so that I am not paying as much self-employment tax, only issuing myself salary as needed at the end of the year and things like that. So I can qualify for certain like government programs as an individual, like with health insurance. Because like without doing that, I'd be paying $700 to $800 probably a month in like health insurance. That's insane.
Yeah.
So now right now I'm paying $100 a month for health insurance.
I pay about the same, and thank goodness for health insurance. I don't know if you remember, I broke my femur.
Yes.
And I had a lapse of about 15 days in between my health insurance because I was like, I'm all good on my prescriptions. Nothing will happen to me. If my femur break had happened 5 days before, I would have been in the hole like at least $300,000.
Wow.
Insurance is important. A lot of my foreign followers are like, what are you talking about? No, it's crazy. It's very sad, actually. By the way, speaking of money, I have to address these 2 super chats. Thank you, Michael, for the $10 super chat. He wants to know, Kevin, are you accessible for consultation on social media, X, IG, Meta?
Oh, I could be. Yeah, but I would only speak confidently on Instagram. I barely X. I just port stuff over from there. And I guess, Meta owns Instagram, but I really just use Instagram inherently. I do have the, oh gosh, what's it even called? Ad manager and stuff that I run stuff through with Meta. But yeah, we can have a chat. My email is kevin@kevinjdebruin.com. The spelling is somewhere probably on here. Yeah.
Awesome. You should get on X though. I really feel like that is going to be big. It already, I think, is pretty big. So
I think it's going the opposite way. Actually,
really?
For the majority of my community in like the scientists and the engineers have moved away from
Threads. To Threads.
Threads.
Or no, to Threads.
Oh, not necessarily the Threads. Just like there's another platform. I don't remember what it's called. I don't use it. There's too many different platforms and things going, but then they'll just like go to Instagram and use Threads or go to Facebook and just like, or Reddit and just like entirely disregard X. Yeah.
Well, the one thing that's interesting about X, and I learned this the other day because, YouTube takes a cut, but I, for some reason, didn't know exactly how much that cut is. You guys might be surprised to hear this. YouTube takes 45% of your earnings, your super chats. So that's depressing. X, on the other hand, has pledged, we'll see if they change this, they're letting creators keep 100% of the revenue until you reach, a cap of like $100,000, which I still to this day haven't reached with YouTube over my lifetime of YouTube. So, that's.
I think that's a great incentive. I like how you said, we'll see if it lasts.
Yeah.
Because so Elon's in charge of this company. He did a very similar thing with Tesla, right? Where you get free supercharging and all these things. So like a company was losing money like crazy to then get that initial thing. And now all the charges that come up on top of that. So we'll see. That has been his strategy in the past.
Right.
We'll have to see what plays for X.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and we do have a very generous super chat from longtime fan Bimmer Geezer. He is late to the party, but he wants to know what you're doing now. So I'll just say Kevin is a former NASA rocket scientist. He quit doing that to to start a much more fulfilling role as an entrepreneur, independent, worker such as myself as well. And so we're talking about that journey and any questions that you guys might have for his background with rocket science or what he's doing today. I personally think that your transition out of JPL is much more fascinating than what it must have been like. I mean, I'm sure some of the missions you worked on were interesting, but I feel like you carving your own path and that trajectory is fascinating. And maybe it's because I'm biased because I'm kind of doing the same thing. It's also interesting to be able to, and I'm sure you can agree with me on this. I was in the news industry. So number one, I couldn't share my opinion on anything, politics, any of that type of stuff. I could lose my job as a reporter, but I also wasn't going to talk bad about the news. But now I'm like, yeah, it's depressing. No one watches news anymore. So it must be liberating to be a little bit more free with your speech about, what your job was actually like.
Yeah, I'm totally transparent, very candid. In my exit interview with HR, they were like, holy crap, like, thank you for your candidness. Like, no one usually tells us, like, these are all the things that have, like, caused you to leave. And I'm like, yeah, like, when I told you I had another job offer, and by you, it was my boss's assistant, because my actual boss and my boss's boss were both out of town for like the next 2 or 3 weeks. So like I didn't really have an option. So he was still like, he's able to make all these decisions. But when I said I have another offer, like at this aerospace corporation, I'm thinking about taking it, he just shook my hand and said, good luck. I'm like, that was it. Not what can we do to get you to stay here? Why are you leaving? And I was like, yeah, if you like, she's like, what could we have done to get you to stay? I'm like, first off, you could have just asked.
Yeah.
Like, asked me to stay. And I knew exactly what JPL was able to do to get me to stay. The lady who hired me retired and started her own company. So I went to her. She's been a mentor of mine. And she's like, this is what they're authorized to like increase your salary by. Then they're authorized to go up this high past that, but they need to go into Caltech and get that approved. So they can't immediately offer it, but they're like, we can go and check to see if we can get this. So like I knew how the conversation could go. It just never happened in the first place. And then now I have like, I guess, spicy Kevin takes where I give my true opinion regardless of, who it's about or what it is. So like in Artemis, yes, it's been delayed and it's costing a lot. Well, one of the things is while I was working on Artemis is the changeover of management throughout it was so chaotic.
Right.
Like someone would come in and like direct the program, and then in 2 years they would retire, and then someone else would take over, and then they wanted to put their stamp on it. So like, no, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it this way. Then like you're basically starting over from almost scratch at that point. And then it happened again and again. And it was like, oh my gosh, there's so much like, if we just stuck on one path,
yeah,
like, and then went like that would be nice. And then talking about like, what was that?
Oh, I do definitely want to ask you about Artemis. I'm actually making a video later today. I don't know if you saw the comments from former NASA Administrator Mike Griffin about how he kind of wants to scrap the current plan for Artemis because it's too complicated and go back to basically a race to the moon, sort of an Apollo 2.0. So, with your kind of inside perspective of the Artemis program, and yes, it's over budget and delayed, like what are your real thoughts about it?
So a lot of people look at Artemis as like, okay, we're going back to the moon, and they think of it as a destination where Artemis is supposed to be a sustainable pathway into our solar system.
Right.
And it's not just NASA. Like Artemis is worldwide. It is ESA. It is the European Space Agency, right? There's so much collaboration that's between public, so different governments, and then public and private, like Lockheed Martin, SpaceX doing the lunar lander and such. So it's not that the moon is the destination, nor is Mars the destination. Those are waypoints in expanding humanity's footprint in space. Mm-hmm. That is the directive of Artemis. And now we make it flashy by saying, we're boots on Mars and, going back to the moon. But if you want Apollo 2.0, that's a race has an end. we're not looking to end, and we're not looking to compete. We're looking to work together, to collaborate, to take humans as a whole and bring them out into space. So I think that thinking is old and short-sighted. Yes, we can do it so much faster and so much cheaper if we're like, okay, yeah, let's just go back to the moon. But no, that's not what we're doing. We are stopping at the moon on the way to Mars, stopping at Mars on the way to the outer solar system. It's not, there is no endpoint, right? And these previous things, so like the shuttle was made, to build the ISS, and it was only to go to LEO. Like I've heard people say, bring back the space shuttle so we can go to the moon. The space shuttle was never designed to go anywhere past LEO. Like going to Hubble was the furthest it's ever been. And the Constellation program, like all of these programs that they're like, what are we going to do with them? Where Artemis is actually like a sustained development to bring humanity to the bigness of space. And I see the question of what work did I do on Artemis.
Yes.
I was looking at the interfaces between the service module and Orion. So all of the mechanical, software, electrical, power, data, all that stuff that needs to go back and forth. So we're talking about ESA, which is the European Space Agency, service module, and then Orion, which is an American capsule. So how do we make sure like the requirements across those two are correct? Are they going to be able to link together? What information are we able to share? Because there's ITAR restrictions and stuff, because now we are working, with a foreign entity. So what is that? So basically it was the integration of the Orion capsule and the European service module. And I won an award from NASA for my work on that one, which is pretty neat.
That is very cool. And we have another comment. I agree that the Artemis program isn't progressing fast enough. Makes sense that they want to change. I mean, what do you think about, the current plan, not this proposed, Apollo 2.0, but how we're doing it now? It is, behind schedule, just got delayed again, right? As of last week, we learned that.
Yeah. So in my mind, it was never delayed. In a lot of NASA people's minds, it was never delayed. The announcement, I believe, for it to be 2024, hours before that was when that was changed. It was supposed to be 2026 was the original internal number. And I don't know how true this is, but supposedly the acting administration wanted to have an earlier time. So then they want to put more pressure and have 2024 be said. And when that was announced, we all looked around at each other like, was that a mistake? Like it was 2026 is what we've all been talking about and working towards. So according to our original thought process, we are on schedule.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
I think it will get delayed even more, but you got to think of the things that happened. Like one of the big delays was hurricanes, not just for the launches of Artemis, but building the SLS, the Child Assembly Facility, had hurricane damage or like strong wind storm damage in Alabama. When Alabama or Mississippi, one of those two, they're right next to each other there. Mm-hmm. In the Gulf of Mexico. It's like, we need to like recheck this structure and see like what type of damage it was in, things that are unforeseen, as well as COVID. No one planned for COVID, right? Like, yeah, JPL was able to launch Perseverance throughout that, which was crazy, but it's also, we're now needing to operate in not only a inter-agency and inter-country negotiation or like, design project, you also have the entire world focused on COVID-19 as well to like sidetrack. So it makes sense that we're not, where we said we were going to be. And
right.
Listen, everybody, this is rocket science. It is hard. And not only is it just rocket science, it is people and rocket scientists. Humans are smart. People are stupid. All of us trying to work together. We all think a little bit differently. Different countries have different priorities. Because Artemis is not just NASA.
Right.
That's the big thing. And this, and I'm sure a lot of the followers also understand, but that's my thought. And there's so many different ways that we can approach Gateway, right? Yeah. And I believe that there was enough studies done. I sat right next to the guy whose study they actually decided to go with. He was the author of it. Like, that guy knows what he's doing, talking about designing architectures and doing trade spaces. So it's on the right path. People just want it sooner and for less.
Right.
But if we actually want to have sustained, humanity footprint into outer space, this is the process that I believe it should take. Yeah.
Right. I agree. Michael has another super chat. Thank you for the $5 super chat, and wants to know, what is your take of Tesla Optimus bots as the first feet on the moon and Mars? So I'm sure you're a little familiar with the Tesla bot that they're building right now. I don't know if you saw the video recently of it folding a shirt.
I did. That is actually the only video I've seen. I am more up on Boston Dynamics robots.
But the idea of basically robots being the first, to certainly help colonize Mars, but even on the moon.
I am a huge fan of that. Robotic exploration is so much better than human exploration. And that's a hill I will die on. And I've said it before. Robotic exploration, you don't have to keep something alive, right? There's so many less resources, higher risk that can be taken with that as well. There's a reason that everything was robotic first. You can get, the human factor of being able to have a human to make those decisions, to do this stuff, or to be out there to see things that wouldn't necessarily be seen or whatever. But then you also have to think about the psychological benefit or just, the psychological factor in general.
Yeah.
I would love more robotic solar system exploration, or more exploration by robotics in general, than human exploration.
Right.
It would be great if, instead of sending civilians to space, we were able to create more private robotic space exploration. I would love to see the first private robot in the outer solar system. So that's past Mars, past the asteroid belt.
Right.
That would be great. And I see someone said robots can't improvise on the spot. Yeah, but what do we need them to improvise for? Are we just going back to the moon? Okay, we can send the robots to the moon to build the colony, to do all these things. We have studies of you robotically land all this stuff, put the habitat together, and then humans can go once that's done. Mm-hmm. The part of us going back to the moon to just put boots down, instead of sending the robots there to build it, is that they want to test more human systems in humanity going up to Mars as well. We could do so much faster and cheaper if it was just robots. Let's just stay.
Yeah. I do think, though, that there is maybe an emotional component of getting more attached or being able to relate more to the idea of humans in space. Do you agree?
Ooh. So yes and no. To some people, yes, and to some people, no. At JPL, all those people care about robots so much more than humans. We personify the robots. Curiosity sings happy birthday to itself on its birthday every year on Mars. We personify that. And I think that more of the world now actually doesn't care about space exploration and even humans going into space. One is because there's so many other things going on and access to information. There's too much information. There's too much stuff. There's more options. Hence, kids want to be YouTubers rather than astronauts. And then also right now, there's a lot of rubbing of wrong way, because who are the new people going to space? Rich people who can afford it. It's we don't like that. It's the 1% stand against. So there's that phase two of now it's not just, oh, I don't think we should space doesn't interest me. There's also a negative connotation to it in that regard of sending people out there.
Right.
Yeah.
I have heard that a lot, and I do think it's true that kids, it used to be, oh, I want to be an astronaut when I grow up, and now it's I want to be a TikToker. Is that a problem?
My gut reaction is to say yes. However, it depends on what kind. If you're being an Ellie in space, no, that's not a problem, right? If you're trying to be the Paul brothers, that is a problem. You know, like if you're using it as a way to, I want to say like create meaningful change and impact, but like we also do need entertainment, right? Like comedians, like first movies, like it's called entertainment for a reason. So now instead of like, I'm going to move to LA and become an actor or an actress, it's I'm going to become a TikToker, right? It just, it makes it so much more accessible,
Right.
Which is also great. Like I have a podcast coming up in 2 weeks with this guy, Jimmy, who does science communication for like medical industry and like physical therapy and stuff. And his whole thing is like using TikTok and Instagram and all this stuff as a means to communicate the information more effectively. Like what you put on the website of like, you know, a medical website, no one understands that crap. But if we can make an easy to understand digestible content, that's great. And I've even talked to teachers who want me to make videos that adhere to the standards on TikTok and then package them up and sell it to them because they're like, this is what the kids are natively like used to, rather than like going to YouTube and watching, you know, a landscape. Like show them a reel, show them a TikTok that's more native and they will grab onto that better. So it is not a bad thing. However, there are necessary evils that come along with it.
Right. Because I have the same reaction of you as like my gut is to say, oh, that's so sad. And, you know, how could that be, you know, the truth? But it's like, well, why is it so bad? I think you do make a good point. We can almost trick people into learning by giving them the information in the right format.
Yeah. So like the phrase in the industry, or at least our industry, is it's entertainment, then education, right? You got to hook them. At least that performs better. And that's the direction of, you know, the big media corporations, or let's just say like network TV, right?
Right.
That's the strategy there.
Well, Ross, I can tell, was checking out your website. He says you've written 2 books. What are they about?
I've got them right here. Hold on.
Great. Show and tell.
Yes. All right. So this is the first one. This is called To NASA and Beyond. It is my memoir about how I got into NASA. I got asked so many times, like, how did you work at NASA? How can I work at NASA? So this is a memoir of me watching October Sky at 10 years old to getting internships, college, jobs at NASA, and then a little bit of my work there, and then why I left NASA is in that one.
Wow.
That was published in 2019. This one, To Dare Mighty Things, was published almost a year ago. It was in April of 2023. And this is a personal development self-help book. Basically, I wrote this for myself like 10 years ago. Of if I knew this stuff back then, my life would have been so much better, so much easier. At least I would have known what was expected, what life should be like. I call it a guide to an out of this world life because I feel like I've done things that have been like out of this world, like a literal rocket scientist, sending stuff to outer space, was American Ninja Warrior, on Let's Make a Deal, entrepreneur, running my own companies. And I'm like, I want to help other people improve themselves if they want to better themselves. This is a lot of information that I've learned along the way. So those are the two.
Awesome.
Both available on Amazon and anywhere books are sold.
So when I asked you why you left NASA, you should have just held up the book and said, this is here's the answer. I had to write a book about it. That's so cool. Yeah, you've done a lot of things that seem like a dream to me, like writing a book, being on American Ninja Warrior. I am curious. I do enjoy fitness, and that's part of how I broke my leg. But what was that experience like?
It was crazy. So I was a bodybuilder first, and I did bodybuilding shows, and I felt too like an ornament and not a tool. I wanted to be an athlete again, use my body for sports. So I applied to American Ninja Warrior, and I signed up for 3 Spartan races and a Tough Mudder all in the same day. So I was getting myself back to be an athlete no matter what it takes. And the way that American Ninja Warrior works is you film a submission video. That's like 2 to 3 minutes. And then you submit that by the end of like November, maybe early December. And then you don't hear anything until a week or 2 weeks before filming, before like the competition. I didn't know this was the process. So I wrote it off. I'm like, okay, it's not happening. I like stopped doing my ninja training.
Oh no.
Kind of went back to like my way. And then I got the call and I was like, you mean in a week I'm gonna have to run a ninja course? Oh boy. Okay, great. Cool. And the way that they call is like they contact people first. They contacted my mom, and then she contacted my buddy Tejas, who I was working with at NASA, and they scheduled this lunch on top of one of the buildings on the terrace. And then I got the call while I was at lunch, so everyone was there. They could film me and my reaction, and I thought it was bogus. I thought someone was like playing a prank on me. I didn't think it was real. So that was excellent. And then I got to bring like 20 people with me. So I'm about to run the course, and on the sidelines there are 20 other rocket scientists there, all chanting "Rocket Man" as I'm getting ready to go run the course. And I was scared out of my pants. Like, not only am I running a course, it is also about midnight. So all filming is done at night from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. because they want it to look cool. We're in the back lot of Universal Studios, so it looks awesome, but I'm supposed to be sleeping. And now there's lights, there's cameras. There are hundreds of people watching me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I got through the first obstacle. That was good. I got through the second one. That was great. And then I'm on the third one, and I struggled a little bit. But I'm so tall. So I'm 6'4" for anyone who's up there. And my wingspan is like 84 inches. So it's more tall. It's wider than I am tall. So I was hanging on an obstacle, and my feet could touch the end, the dismount platform. And I felt that. I'm like, oh, I'm going to make this look really cool. I'm just going to like walk it off, make sure I get some neat stuff on TV. And I didn't have enough momentum going forward. So I got my feet on there, and then I fell backwards.
No.
And you think that would be humiliating enough? When they actually aired the episode, there's commentary from Matt Eisman and Akbar Bashabiamila, and they're like, okay, he's working on a mission to Jupiter. Oh, he's going to have to revisit this thrust equation. He needs like more power here. And then at the end, as like I hang in my head, Akbar says, the rocket scientist should have been smarter. And I'm like, oh, like way to just like,
my God.
Oh, I'm down, man.
Wait, so that's it? You only get one shot?
You only get one shot, and you're not allowed to touch any of the obstacles. You don't know what the obstacles are until you show up to filming.
Oh my
So
God.
there, they walk you along the side of the course. You get to see one person do the obstacle. You can ask questions, and that's it. So that was my first.
Do you want to do it again?
I did it. I did season 9 and I did season 10. So that was 2017 and 2018. And then for the last 6 years, I'm actually a test ninja. So I'm a guinea pig where I work with the show throughout the year. I go to their warehouse where they've got all the new obstacle ideas set up before they're like finished. So this is like plywood and sandpaper and like, oh, don't touch that part. You're going to get hurt. To try them out. Like, do they look good for TV? Are they too easy? Are they too hard? Is it fun? And I enjoy doing that more than trying to run the course at midnight or 2 a.m. in front of tons of people who only get one chance. Here, I do the same obstacle sometimes, 10, 12 times because they want to keep on refining it and like changing it and doing things. So it's an adult jungle gym. I'm a big kid, and I get to fully express myself in that. So I am a professional ninja, which is pretty neat.
That's crazy. So I don't know. Did you ever complete a course?
I did not. So not during filming. So I completed when the cameras aren't on when we're testing. But on season 9, so I fell on the third obstacle. There's 6 for the first one. The 6th one is the warp wall, which is like a skateboard ramp you run up, and then you hit the button on top. And then I fell on the third obstacle again in season 10. But the obstacles are all different. So the one on season 9 that I fell on is not the same one that I fell on into the pool of water on season 10. But since then, since I've been testing, like we'll run through the course during the daytime, no cameras, producers are there to check it out. That I finished, but
Right.
because I'm not competing. I've done this a bunch of times, so now I've gotten used to it. But I would like to go back.
Yeah.
When they do Red Nose Night. So they do a celebrity edition where the obstacles are a little bit easier. I don't like that part, but where you're raising money for charity. So I would love to get to a point where I am allowed to come back because I'm educating and inspiring a large amount of people. That's like, oh, hey, wouldn't this be a nice full circle? He used to compete. Now he does this. And this is just like a side pastime thing. Like, let's do it again. Because then I'm running the course with one of the Star Ninjas, one of my friends, who is like coaching me along the way. And I think that would be fun. I would want to do that though the day before. So they do all the filming like in sequential days. It's like the first two competitions and then they make it easier for the celebrity people. I'm like, no, give me the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Like, to do that. I need to know if I did it real or if you made it easy for me.
Wow. That would be awesome. I'm sure you can do it.
Oh, thank you.
We probably have a little bit more time. I don't know. We can maybe do like 10 more minutes. Is that cool?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm actually good for a little bit longer if you want to.
Okay. How was that TED Talk? And what?
Yeah, I've given two actually. I gave the first one in 2019 at Georgia Tech, and that's called "Without Space We Die," and then I gave another one in April of 2022 here in Florida in Tampa called Launch Yourself. So the first TED Talk, Without Space We Die, highlights all of the technologies that we use on either a daily basis to operate life, not all, but some of the technologies, and then life-saving technologies where like without this space technology, we would die. And in that, I highlight three big stories. One of them is the grooves in the road. So the grooves in the road came from NASA testing airplanes landing on wet runways, and they needed improved traction. So freeways at the time didn't have that. They were just slabs. But after that technology was put into the freeways, there was an 85% reduction in accidents, which was insane. That's life-saving right there. To like growing plants on the International Space Station using LED lights. A professor at the University of Madison did a spin-off technology of that to activate cancer medication inside a patient. So a man by the name of George Grace had cancer, went through this experimental treatment, and he's cancer-free today. He's an artist living in Buffalo, has more time with his family and friends because this space derivative technology cured his cancer. Like without space, we would die, from whether it's, the image sensors and the iPhone, to GPS communication, clear braces, firefighter gear, car tires, shoes. Earthquake shock absorbers came from the dampening systems during space shuttle launches of why buildings in LA and Tokyo sometimes don't fall down during earthquakes. Like all of these things that save lives. And then the new one, Launch Yourself, was the start of To Dare Mighty Things. It's like the top level seed of where To Dare Mighty Things came from. Right? Like I knew I wanted to write the book, but doing the TED Talk kind of like forced me to start taking some action on that. And it highlights the NASA spacecraft design process. And I analog that to the same 5 steps it takes to achieve your dreams or to really get anything done. So I went through like those 30 different missions from Earth orbiters to the sample returns to telescopes. They all went through the same process. And then I started looking at celebrities or other well-known people, Steve Jobs, Michael Jordan, Oprah, Sylvester Stallone, Steven Spielberg, even astronaut Jose Hernandez. Like they all did these same things. And I'm like, eureka. Like I had a revelation. I'm like, all right, now if I knew this 10 years ago, it would be great. Now let me put this information together and share it to other people. So real quick, the 5 steps are basically, you have an idea. It's called CML1, concept maturity level, or NASA design level 1. Cocktail napkin, you have an idea, the aha moment. 2 is initial feasibility. Is it possible? Most people don't believe in themselves or they have doubters. So you need to believe in yourself and make it possible. 3 is trade space. What are the different options you have to go to Jupiter, or what type of solar panels do you want? or what are the different ways you can get into NASA? You know, you can work somewhere else and then go into NASA. You could apply right away. You could do internships, all of that. And then step 4 is point design, where you pick one. And then step 5 is taking action on it. It's called concept baseline. You have your idea, you have your roadmap. Okay, this is plan A, go for it. And then it's an iterative process. Because a lot of the times, most of the time, plan A doesn't work. So then you go back to 3, figure out the other options, figure out which one you're going to pick, and then take action on it. And you go over and over and over again. That's what the second TED Talk talks about, is that one there.
That's another thing that I want to do. That's so cool. Would you recommend if someone wants to give a TED Talk, is it worth the experience and the nerves, I'm sure, that go along with it?
I think so, definitely. You know, you get to have the TED letters next to your name and say, like, I've done this. I have done specific, like, just flat TED. Both of these were TEDx talks. So I'm not a TED fellow, but definitely worth it.
TEDx is different than TED?
Yes. So TEDx are independently organized TED Talks. So anyone can run a TEDx event. You just have to follow all of the rules, which there is a lot. Like, it is no small undertaking. The actual TED Talks, these are TED fellows who are like super vetted, and there's no time limit on their talks. Where for TEDx, the time limit is 16 minutes. And the best talks are 10 minutes. And that came from, because they're all uploaded on YouTube, and just over 10 minutes is like best for the algorithm. So if you're able to get your TEDx talk to like around the 10-minute mark, you have a better chance of getting more exposure.
Wow. Okay.
That's
good. Yeah. And I am curious, like, this just, they give you a teleprompter, right? Like, you don't have to memorize your talk.
You need to memorize everything. No notes.
Wait, what?
Maybe as like a TED fellow, maybe, but no, there's no teleprompter. Mm-mm.
No, you're lying.
If you have notes, you are looked very, very frowned upon. Like, you can do it, but everyone in the audience and anyone watching goes, oh. So you memorize the 5 to 16 minute talk, and then you have to stand on the red circle. You're not allowed to leave the red circle. Like, that's one of the things, right? So they want you moving around. They don't want you just standing still. Like, and then there's a dress code that goes along with it. Yeah, there's things.
I thought, like, that was a dumb question, because of course there'd be a teleprompter.
No, I've got some teleprompter horror stories. I'm sure that you do as well. Like, I was doing an 8-page interview where I was filming just like the questions, and then they were going to film the answers with the person later and splice it all together. And they gave me the script the night before, and it was 8 pages. I'm like, okay, it's got to be a prompter tomorrow. No, I show up. I'm like, where's the prompter? They're like, there's not one. I'm like, you want me to go off book? Like,
yeah.
Excuse me. So, like, we filmed like 15 to 30-second increments where I'm like, trying to memorize the line. Okay, give it. Memorize the line. Give it.
Well, that's actually how I've been doing all my production. I don't have a teleprompter. I actually just bought one to hopefully use in my new studio, but that's what I've been doing. Yeah. It sucks.
Did you get a Parrot?
I got for the teleprompter.
Yeah, I have a teleprompter. It's right behind here. I don't know, flip you around.
Show me.
Let's see if it shows. Yeah, right here. This is my teleprompter attached to my DSLR right there.
Oh, wow. No, I don't have that. I got like one of the big ones that I think you need an iPad.
Yeah, I wanted smaller, more compact.
Right. But it makes a difference. Yeah. So that is something I'll be setting up in my new studio. And for everyone listening, that's why it's echoing right now, because I just moved in here. So give me a break. Wow. No, this has been a great conversation. I feel like we have a lot of similarities. You're doing a lot of the things that I aspire to do one day. And I really appreciate you giving us your time. I think a lot of people have enjoyed getting to know you.
Oh, yeah, this has been fun. This is great.
Yeah. I feel like
I'm seeing there's comments on the side here, and I'm like, oh, there's so much to see.
yeah, no, I appreciate everyone who's active in the chat right now. I actually will be in Florida next month because I am flying 0G. So have you done that yet?
Ooh, where are you flying over? I haven't done that either.
Orlando.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that
I will only do that if someone pays for it. I'm not gonna spend money to do that.
That's the boat that I'm in. I won a contest, thankfully, because I'm not going to pay almost $15,000 to do that, which is crazy. Some people can afford that. So I'm looking forward to that. And I know that a lot of you guys have asked me what's going on with that. It was delayed, as many things are, as we know, in the space industry and, you know, aviation and stuff like that. I guess the FAA didn't clear the airspace, so that should be fun. But yeah, someone asked earlier in the chat if either of us would want to go to Mars. So I'm curious from you.
No, like
no.
I really have an interest. Like, sure, if I could teleport there, yeah, but I don't need to spend 7 to 9 months in a tin can to go out there. Like, I'll inspire you to go and do that, and stay here with my dog, and I can go outside without wearing a spacesuit and take in the sun.
Yeah, I feel like if it were kind of more fine-tuned and I would have a guarantee of coming home, I could see myself doing it, but I don't think we're anywhere close to that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be one of the pioneers that just goes there to die.
Oh, you don't want to be one of the.
Yeah, I'd rather die here.
No, I mean, like, you can shoot my ashes there. Yeah. Like, I'll go to the moon. You know, for the most I would want to spend in space would maybe a week. Like, yeah, I do want to experience it at some point, but yeah, I don't need to be a pioneer in that regard. No.
Yeah. Well, we have another super chat from Ben H. Thank you. He says, thank you, Ellie. Hello, Kevin. Hope you can reevaluate the Tesla bot. They are next level from Boston Dynamics and designed for mass production. They fit your desire to let them perform the dirty work before humans. So,
oh, heck yeah! I did not know they came from Boston Dynamics. I guess I've been behind on those times.
No, they come from Tesla, but he's saying that Tesla bots are superior to anything.
Oh, they're next level from Boston. Got it.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So you'll have to look into them more. I do want you to be able to give your socials so that people, I'm sure a lot of you guys have enjoyed hearing from Kevin. So let's hear what your socials are so people can follow you. You said Instagram's your best, right?
Yeah, it is at Kevin J. Bruin across everything. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok that I don't use, but any reel I post on Instagram, I post that on TikTok. I'm one of those old people. So yeah, Instagram's where I hang out, but at Kevin J. Bruin on everything.
Yeah. I have been trying to crack into the TikTok, algorithm, and that's the one that I just like. My TikTok's okay, but it's so frustrating that, you have obviously carved a space on Instagram. For some reason, I've kind of figured out YouTube, not fully, but enough to like do it full time. And it's like, it's so weird how all of them, it's just kind of random how you fall into it. I do think that a lot of people, including myself, that's how I spend a lot of my free time is on TikTok. So I see its value.
Yeah.
Do you?
I mean, I don't know if we have enough time to go into all of this because like TikTok itself is an interesting beast. Like it is literally international warfare. I mean, it is because the algorithms behind TikTok in China versus the algorithms that run TikTok in the United States, there's specific malintent of why it was designed that way. Like, no, it's not spyware anymore because of, the United States putting in regulations and taking control over, the United States side of things, but it dumbs us down. It does. Like I had a conversation recently that now TikTok is monetizing videos, but they like have to be over a minute. And that's to try and force longer form content,
Right.
The way people are getting around that is putting 60, 10-second or 6 10-second clips together or things like that. I try and stay off it as much as possible.
Really?
Yeah. So I am not a content creator anymore. Like,
Okay.
that is like, I don't want to make TikToks. Like, I have no desire to get back into content creation. Like, yes, I'll make TV shows, I'll make books, I'll make specific content, but like being a content creator is not what I'm going for anymore. It used to be.
Why? Why'd you switch from that?
Well, like the content creator to me is, so it's an extremely saturated market, and there's really no way to differentiate different levels of credibility. And I see content creation is now the new trading time for money, where people leave the 9 to 5 because you're trading time for money. It's a salary, but with the longevity of content, where TikTok is like what, a couple seconds, Instagram's maybe a few hours, YouTube I think is a few days or a week. You are now consistently making content. You're making daily content. I mean, yes, you can batch it and stuff, but basically the amount of time investment that you're getting for that, to me, it's the new trade time for money. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of got burnt out. Like, I did post YouTube videos, every single week for a year and a half or whatever. I've done a reel basically every single day for the last like 6 months. So I'm rethinking my new social strategy come February. I don't want to be the content creator. I basically want to be more, I guess, of a producer and a coach.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like large scale hosting, or working with like education companies, or like working with the school system, like creating packageable content. So like all the content that I have created in the past, or I would say 95% of it, is evergreen content. So it's the content that won't change unless we make a new scientific discovery, and then it becomes
Yeah.
It's not these quick, fast forming things. So I'm like, I've made so much and it's evergreen. Like, I can reuse it and reshop it, and I can re-edit it. So like with Space Class, I can package up that content, right, and then sell it. So now I'm turning it into a system in a company, rather than adhering to social media, Instagram, TikTok algorithms, or anything like that. Taking back my power. So you wouldn't call like the people who made Masterclass like content creators. No, they created like an education information company.
Right.
So that's where the shift is.
Well, that's very interesting. I definitely can relate to the burnout feeling. Like, a lot. It's crazy, right? Because like when I quit my job and decided to do this, I'm like, oh, I'll have all the time in the world. I'm gonna triple down on content. And it's like, no, it burns you out. Like, editing that used to be fun and kind of like a passion project, now it's like, very tedious, and it never ends.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess I've been in the game for a minute. So I've been on Instagram for 10 years. If you look at my posts, it's like 3,500 or 3,600 posts. So I basically, on average, made a post a day since starting. My brand has pivoted along the time. But now Instagram, or like all of social, serves as a platform of a portfolio for me. Like, I've been around for a bit, so now I just point people to that or use that. I get more work when I'm doing work, not when I'm doing social content. So like whether I'm giving a talk, or like I've reached out like production companies, networking and things like that. It's more in that regard than anything that I'm seeing on social. Like, I don't make money off of social media. I mean, I barely do. And it takes a lot for someone to work with me. A lot of people don't want to work with me because I'm like, you need to adhere to like these things, and you're going to pay what I say you're going to pay. And you have to work with me specifically because you want to work with me, and like nobody else. I'm like, I don't want that. So yeah, I mean, it has evolved so much, since the start of just like social media in general, to then being at NASA, to then leaving NASA, and then the last 6 years of being out on my own. And hey, in 6, 9 months, maybe a year, you come back on here, I'm like, oh, what I told you last year was so wrong. Like, this is where I'm at now. Continuing to pivot and change as, we experience new things and new technologies come on the market, right?
Right. That's the journey of life. It's always changing. Change is a constant. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us your time and letting us talk to you. I'm very inspired by what you're doing, and I hope that I can achieve some of the things that you've been able to achieve because it is exciting to just kind of shoot for the stars, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we can have a longer offline conversation where I give you some more details or deep in the weeds or like tips and tricks I've learned along the way that I'm not sure everyone here would be interested in.
Yes.
And yeah, I am working on my next book. And Ellie, you're going to be in that one. If you remember, I reached out to you a few months ago for email address.
That's right. Okay, great.
Been working on that. I got stuff in the works.
You're doing a lot more than me. But great. Well, I'm going to end the stream. We have a lot of people saying thank you. Great interview. So
thank you. Appreciate everyone tuning in. And for you for hosting and putting this up and for everything that you're doing, spreading the good word of space and science out there, Ellie. Like, that's why I brought you on to Takeover Tuesday. Like,
yes.
Like this.
It's funny, that day that I did Takeover Tuesday, I actually was picking up my Tesla. So it was like a pretty busy day, but not space related. But I like that you do that too with creators. So thank you guys so much for watching, and maybe we'll have you on again in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions I didn't get to, hit me up on Instagram. I try and get through all the DMs as possible. So
awesome. Great.
Science.
Perfect. Thank you.